Speaking of hot controversies, we've got a very hot controversy here in Tennessee athletics, and you've probably seen it thrown around already on the interwebs over the course of the week. And it has to do with Tennessee athletics contract with Nike expiring here in 2026 and an apparent possibility that Tennessee may not renew that contract and could very well move back to Adidas. Uh, the Richard G. West tweet has already been sent. I saw it earlier this afternoon, which, by the way, I'm not saying you should take your information from him necessarily, but he's been more right than wrong lately. I got to be honest. He might know more than you think he does. But anyway, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Jordan. What is your preference, Nike or Adidas, for Tennessee's athletic apparel here in the future?
As far as apparel or uniforms?
Well, uniforms, let's just say. I should not have said apparel in the first place, but yeah, uniforms, because that's what Tennessee fans are very concerned about with this deal potentially breaking.
Well, as far as the uniforms go, I'll say since Tennessee switched to Nike, I think it's been a good thing for Tennessee because Adidas was getting a little bit questionable there. I mean, after I think 2010, they ended up getting like the Tech Fit jerseys, which I initially liked, but looking back on it, the colors didn't really seem to match up all the time on Tennessee.
You talking about the yellow numbers?
Yeah, like there's always just a little yellowish tint. It didn't seem like Adidas could get the orange right until around the time when Adidas was going out the door, like in like 2013, 2014, they like finally stepped it up. But even then, they had like over designed patterns on the shoulders. They put like the power T like right above the chest and everything. I mean, and then the smoky grays were really cool initially because Tennessee was changing things up, but in the grand scheme of things, like compared to Nike, not really that impressive. But I will say my one complaint that I have had with Nike since Tennessee's made the switch is I've never been a big fan of the number font.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not a huge fan of it either. I just think I don't know. It just, it doesn't feel super traditional. It just looks kind of trendy almost. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but overall, I do think the designs are cleaner. And I know there are several people that are arguing that Adidas would be fine to go back to just because that is what Tennessee was wearing in 1998. And look, obviously, I'm going to age both me and you when I say this, Jordan, but we were not alive and well then. The kids today were certainly not alive and well then that are going into college football programs now. That might as well be ancient history to them. And you and I are from a generation that really began to care about the brands that they wore, of just any kind of athletic apparel, whether it be jerseys, compression shirts, anything of that matter. And what school in particular really started to blow up because of eccentric designs when we were growing up with their uniforms?
Oregon.
Of course. And obviously Phil Knight is a big factor there. He gives them all the Nike money. But you just look at the schools that have Nike and you just compared to the ones who don't. Like, there is a very serious difference in the kind of recruit that they're getting. Like, Nike is your Alabamas, your Floridas, your Georgias, Michigans, Ohio States. Like, the two best ones that I can think of that are Adidas are Miami and Texas A&M. Miami has been a shell of its former self. Texas A&M, no matter how good they think they're going to be, they're never going to be as good as they think they're going to be in college football. That's just been a problem for them going back several years now. But yeah, it's a big difference. And I don't know about you personally, but I prefer Nike apparel over any kind of Adidas apparel. Like my shoes, I only get the same kind of Nike shoes. And part of it is because, and this is a tangent for another day, but shoe shopping is a bit of a pain for me. But it's just a better feel. It feels cooler and it looks cooler. And there's the whole look good, feel good, play good thing. And I think that's what some of these recruits are into. Now, obviously, there's actual money involved here, and there has been a push to make Tennessee the flagship, so to speak, of Adidas sponsorships in college football. So if it pays them more, then maybe that helps from an NIL perspective, and maybe kids are getting away from the care that they have had for the last 10, 15 years over what brand it is that they wear of jerseys and uniforms. But I just overall, I don't see too many benefits from moving away from Nike to Adidas.
I mean, the only benefit I could really see is if somehow it ends up getting more money for NIL and stuff like that, or maybe NIL deals through Adidas. Maybe that could be a thing. But in general, like, I don't know, apparel wise, I wasn't a huge fan when Tennessee was the Adidas. I thought they had very bare bones, like t-shirt designs and everything. I don't remember them ever doing anything with shoes. Whereas, like, when Nike became a thing with Tennessee, they instantly dropped Tennessee themed shoes and everything. Like, I've always thought the apparel is better for Nike, but you mentioned like Miami, and I think they have good uniforms. I think Adidas has stepped things up in the past years, as opposed to how it was about a decade ago. But I don't know. I'm just not like a big fan of Adidas unless it leads to wins for Tennessee ultimately. But I will say, in terms of like gear for football, like for the what the players would be wearing, oddly enough, I always liked Adidas cleats more than Nike. I thought Nikes were too stiff and like too tight. Because I got a pair before when I was in high school, and I thought they looked really cool. Tried them on, tried running in them, gave them a chance for maybe about like a month or so. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I had a couple of pair of Nike cleats too. And I always thought Adidas felt better. So in terms of like play on the field, I don't know how Nike cleats are in today's age, but I know about like 10 years ago, I wasn't a huge fan of them. So maybe players could like the feel of it more, but I know it's not always about the feel. A lot of the times it's about how you look too. And I will say Nike does have better looking cleats for sure. And just apparel, uniforms in general.
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on the person, right? It just depends on your preferences, what you think feels most comfortable, and it's ultimately got to fit that need. You got to have some kind of comfort while you're playing out there, and that's a big part of it. And another thing too that we should talk about is the alternate designs, obviously, because we've seen both Adidas and Nike try and design both the smoky gray and dark mode, and of course Adidas was the first one to do this. Um, the white outline on the dark mode back when it premiered in 2009. Not that it was called dark mode back then, but it's just not as clean as what Nike has created here recently. And of course, you've seen too Tennessee release smoky grays here recently with with Nike, and those look a lot cleaner, I feel like, than the ones that Adidas released. And let me see if I can share my screen here and show you a monstrosity that was created by Adidas that Tennessee didn't even wear because Butch Jones thought it was so ugly. And yeah, it's brutal. Let me show you this. If that's showing. Yeah. Look at that. Look at that garbage right there on the far right.
And I think they sold those briefly too, didn't they? Like I think like how every single one of Tennessee uniforms ends up being. Like I think those got leaked beforehand, and then like they never ended up releasing them. But no, those look awful.
Yeah, those look bad. No, I'll be completely honest. The ones that they wore against Austin P in 2023 designed by Nike, those were bad too. Very, very bad with the yoke. And I get what they were doing, right? It was, kind of a nod to Condridge and what he did here, but it didn't look good with the gray, and just the fact that game ended so poorly for Tennessee, it felt like, and was just a harbinger of things to come. Yeah, not one you want to go back to, but overall, I would say Nike has done a better job with the smoky grays, and even the ones this year I thought were really well done. Just with the designs, because it was honoring what the three grand regions, I think, of Tennessee. So that was pretty cool. And then, the ones they created back in 2015 when they busted out the smoky gray helmets, those were pretty clean.
Yeah, and speaking of the helmets, I mean, I would assume that Nike has got trademarks on that and stuff too. So if Tennessee ends up switching to Adidas, I highly doubt that there will be any more of the Smoky Mountains on the helmets or anything like that, which would be very disappointing because I don't know about you, but I felt like the helmets was the coolest part about Tennessee's smoky gray uniforms.
Yeah. And the white helmet on top of the gray uniform, that just felt like it clashed too much when they debuted them back in 2013. I was not a huge fan of that look. I bought the jersey because, 11-year-old me is, again, we're at that time where, Oregon jerseys are selling like crazy because they're eccentric looking. Seattle Seahawks, they had some interesting looking neon jerseys. That's every 11 to 13-year-old boy's favorite color. So that's why people started rooting for the Seahawks. And, it also helped that they were winning Super Bowls. But, I was just looking for something different. And, of course, you had the checkers on the numbers, which I did think was kind of cool. But overall, just not as clean as the current iterations of the smoky gray that we've seen, or past Nike iterations, I should say, of the smoky gray.
Yeah, I would agree on that. One thing that I wouldn't be opposed to, I'm still trying to figure out my thoughts on it, but I wouldn't mind seeing the black outlines come back for the white uniforms. I mean, I was happy when Tennessee got away from that during the time because my favorite uniforms that Tennessee ever wore were actually before my time, like the Andy Kelly era
Yeah.
where they had the white jerseys with the orange
outlines. Yeah,
and
those
then
are
the
cool.
orange pants. I love that a lot.
Yeah.
So I mean, but looking back on it, I kind of get a little nostalgic thinking about the black outline uniforms. And of course, like, Peyton Manning wore that back in the day too, like going back to like what you mentioned with people saying like winning the national championship and having nostalgia with that because those are the uniforms Tennessee was wearing. I wouldn't be opposed to going back to that, or like I said, my dream would be with the orange outline, but it might be too retro of a look.
Well, look, I'm no designer here, but if we were to, potentially put that black outline on the Nike uniforms under the current font, how do we think that would look?
I don't know. I would have to see it, to be honest, because
Yeah.
like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a big fan of the font.
Yeah. No, I understand too. Like, I don't necessarily love that they went away from it. Like, one here recently that I've appreciated kind of going with a bit of a throwback is Georgia with its numbers specifically, because I don't know what year that was, maybe 2012, 13, where they switched to that font and then they flipped back to one that they wore in the early 2000s that I think just looks much cleaner because they had the smaller numbers there for a while. Let me try and pull this up and show you guys what I'm talking about. But these, I just don't think they're nearly as clean as what Georgia wears now. Yeah. So, all right. So I got it here. So on the old Google, so you can see down here in this corner where the white jersey is, that font, which is what they used to wear for about a, I don't know, 9-10 year period. And then you go over here to the left, which is something closer to what they're wearing now, which is actually not a picture that was taken more recently, but you get the point. Sometimes in order to go forward, you need to take a step backward. Not necessarily saying that Tennessee needs to move from Nike to Adidas to do that, but you could make even better looks with Nike potentially. And I think anything that they give you would be a preference for some of these players over what Adidas could give you.
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned before, I'm more of a fan of the Nike uniforms overall. It would be nice to like switch up of the font and Adidas schools, Texas A&M. I can't remember if they switched fonts or not in recent time, but I
They
will.
did.
They did. Okay, that's what
Yeah.
I thought.
Because they had for a while, like there was you'd see it on their white numbers. There's like a little, well, no, when on their white jerseys, there's like this little outline on the numbers, like near the top of them, I want to say, or like in the middle of them. And then they've just flipped to solid numbers here lately. And I don't, I don't necessarily think that's a worse look, but I still just don't think it's pretty. Maybe just because I'm not a huge maroon guy, but it's just, I don't know. It's not a very aesthetically pleasing look to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the other side of the fence a little bit. I kind of like their modern like fonts on Texas A&M, but one thing that I did like, I don't know if they've still done this in the past years or not, or if they did it last year, but they did something very unique where they tried to make it look like throwback, like they designed like fake holes like in the jersey on the numbers. And I always thought that was a cool idea too.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the throwbacks because throwbacks can be risky. As I mentioned with the nod to Condridge that the 2023 iterations of the Smoky Grays had, but Illinois did one this year. That was, forget which coach it was they were honoring that day, but they did like this weird 1920s throwback that just looked nasty. Do you know what I'm talking about, Jordan?
Yeah, I actually do because I was playing with Illinois in my dynasty in
Okay.
college football recently. Yeah, very oddball. It was like something you would see from like the OG like Packers or Bears
Yeah.
uniforms.
Because when you have different colors in these throwbacks, as a neutral observer, somebody that's not a fan of either team watching the game, you get a little confused because the Eagles have one too where it's like yellow and blue, not even green, and like I like their what is that 80s or 90s throwback where they go to the lighter green. I actually really like those. But they wore some one time that were yellow and blue, and you'd think it was the Chargers watching it, but no, it's just the Eagles. Thankfully, Tennessee does not have that problem where it's had more than one color historically. So the only thing you got to worry about is if the orange helmets make a reappearance, which Tennessee fans hope that doesn't happen for a very long time.
See, okay, I'm glad you mentioned the orange helmets because initially when that South Carolina game happened, of course, no one really wants to remember that, but I felt like it was a little unfair that to just blame it all on the helmets. Like I'm not opposed to seeing them come back. Just hopefully there'd be a good memory surrounding them because I mean, I don't know, like it was interesting to see Tennessee switch it up. And I know that when I was a kid, that was something I always wanted to see because you were talking about how Oregon was doing things all the time that got kids excited. They were just seeing all these crazy different color combinations and whatnot. I always thought, like, man, what would it look like if Tennessee had an orange helmet? And of course, bad memories surrounded it. I mean, Tennessee ended up their chances of going to the college football playoffs were done there. Hendon Hooker got injured, but I don't know. I wanted to see them come back again, to be honest. And I feel like I'm the minority in that situation, but I wouldn't be opposed to them trying it out again. Just hopefully, maybe that's what Tennessee should wear for homecoming against New Mexico State.
Okay, so wear the orange helmets with an orange jersey. Is that what you're asking for?
Well,
that would be an interesting look because Florida has done this from time to time, like once a season, maybe. Obviously, Oklahoma State does it a good bit, but Tennessee orange is so distinct from those two that that would be a very interesting image. Or what you could do is you could go orange helmet on the dark mode jersey, or potentially an orange helmet on a smoking gray. There's so many different combinations that you could do here. I'm not necessarily suggesting that because we've also seen that uniform combos don't necessarily equal championships. See Oregon and Alabama. Alabama is as plain and simple as you can get, and they have more national championship victories than any other program. What, this century? Maybe, yeah,
like
this
ever.
century for sure. Yeah, ever.
Unless you're
And,
counting like Yale.
And they are just so dry as uniforms, and they just so simple. Yet you got Oregon over here doing all these crazy experiments with Phil Knight's Nike money, and they're not winning any national championships. They'll win 9-10 regular season games, and they're not going to be any happier once it reaches the postseason, just because they're not going to win anything beyond a certain point.
I will say, if Tennessee was to go back to Adidas, one thing that I did like during those times is it seemed, and I guess it depends on the head coach as well, Tennessee wore the orange pants more frequently at the white uniforms. And like I mentioned earlier, that was my favorite Tennessee uniform ever. The white jersey with the orange pants. If Tennessee did switch back to Adidas and they made that more frequently, maybe they could change my mind a little bit. But I feel like Tennessee does not wear that uniform enough.
Trying to envision the outline of the orange outline specifically on the white uniforms that Nike has created. I don't know if that would be a good look. Maybe it's just me, and maybe I'd have to see it, but I can't imagine it would look good. But the orange outline would be a cool feature to return if Adidas should be the brand that Tennessee settles with. But at the same time, I do think you've got to clean it up a little bit, make it, maybe make the numbers a little smaller, make it a little more modern looking than it was back then. I had a thought just a second ago, and it just escaped me. Oh, yeah, the orange pants. Tennessee's a little cursed right now with the white jerseys and orange pants of late. They've lost, I think, 3 or 4 straight wearing that combo. I know that Mizzou game 2 years ago, they lost. Arkansas this season was another one. Georgia in 2022 was also a loss for Tennessee in those. I think the last one they won might have been Kentucky in 2021.
I think you're right. I'm pretty sure you're right with the Kentucky game and everything.
Yeah. I think the Stormtrooper look is just so much cleaner.
I know, and that's what I hear almost every Tennessee fan say on Twitter, but I don't know. Maybe I watched too much A Decade of Dominance on repeat when I was a kid. I don't know if any of the listeners have ever watched that Tennessee like documentary thing. It was like based on Tennessee's success in the 90s, but man, so many good games back then. At least they were wearing the orange pants, and I just thought it looked just perfect and right. But with the orange outline and the numbers, I think it would be really cool for a throwback uniform. But like you said, I mean, in the modern day, I don't know, but I really do like that uniform back when it was going on in the 90s.
Does anybody really outline their jerseys like that anymore with one color on another color? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I can't think of one.
I can't think either, and there might be a reason for that too, with the press box and everything and being able to read off numbers. That very well could be a thing.
Well, that's why the outlines came to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why the black outlines exist, so the announcers could see them when they're on the road. You could decipher what jerseys or who was wearing what number when they were on the road, because they just look like these orange blobs from a distance.
Yeah, so it might not be as practical, but it would be really cool, like for a throwback uniform, or at least in my opinion.
So we will see what happens in the great Nike and Adidas debate here in, I guess, the next year, because it's July 2026, I think, when the contract runs up. But and I'm sure this will not be the last time this conversation is mentioned as well, just because you got plenty of people that are pretty opinionated about the matter. This is probably the most I've ever talked about jerseys in any kind of show. but it's a hot topic of controversy. We need to figure out what this team is going to be wearing and if it will draw in more or possibly lose out on some recruits for Tennessee.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said earlier, I would like Tennessee to switch or keep the Nike. It just that's me. But at the end of the day, it whatever gets the victories, whatever gets the recruits there. If Adidas revamped their game, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I like Miami's uniforms a lot. I feel like they're an outlier in the grand scheme of things compared to other Adidas school because I'm not a fan of Nebraska's really. But I mean, if they could make Tennessee a focal point and put a lot of effort into working on the uniforms, it could be cool. But at the end of the day, I think most Tennessee fans just want to see Tennessee win. And of course, it's keep wearing orange, but I mean, just wear orange and win.
Yeah, no black numbers on just straight white jerseys. That's a boring look without any Tennessee orange on it. It's like, because who was it? It's Iowa State, and they wore those jerseys for the Pop-Tart Bowl this year. You remember? They had the white. It was black helmets with a white jersey.
I actually didn't see that.
No red or yellow featured anywhere. Let me pull this up. Like not to say Tennessee will ever do this, but
well, surely not.
Yeah, this was not a look that I'm really into, to be honest with you. Let me share my screen real quick so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. But note to any athletic apparel designer, do not give Tennessee this. If it'll go back right quick. Yeah, this thing right here that I got my arrow around, don't design just a black helmet with a white jersey. That just looks so dull.
It looks like something you'd see in like Superstar KO of Madden.
Yeah, that like I'm all for cool designs on jerseys. Don't make a dull one that doesn't even feature your school colors.
Yeah, and thankfully Tennessee's never had that problem to my knowledge. I mean, every uniform, even dating back to like the 30s and stuff like that, seemingly always had orange. So I wouldn't imagine that would end up being a thing in the future. But if someone did suggest that in a meeting or something like that, that person needs to be fired.